Brashard Smith, SMU running back, 5'9" and 7/8 inches, 194 pounds, only 8 3/4 inch hands. He is 21 years old. He'll be 22 in April. So that's right around the corner. He ran a 4.39 in the 40, 1.58, which is an odd time for 4.39 on the 10-yard split. 117-inch broad jump and a 32.5-inch vertical. Last year at SMU, he had 235 attempts, 1,332 yards rushing, 14 touchdowns, 39 receptions, 327 yards receiving, and an additional 4 touchdowns. Easy for me to say. Last year, he had the 48th, ranked the 48th best run blocking offensive line in front of him.
So slightly above average.
Yep.
Yeah, this is a player, again, I saw his name all over Twitter, X, Brashard Smith, over the combine of SMU. And, running a 4.39 is always going to kind of like,
it's going to boost you up.
Going to boost your eyes there. So it's like, oh, okay. And he was one of like the later guys I watched film on. I think I didn't get to his film until like early Monday morning. Got to it and start off with Brashard Smith is a former wide receiver out of Miami. And
yep.
he switched
3 years of wide receiver at Miami.
Yeah. So he played 3 years at wide receiver, transferred to MSU and made the running back switch. And,
so just 1 year running back here at SMU.
Similar to Tyrone Tracy, Antonio Gibson, some of those guys.
Yeah. Just like that. So, I actually liked both their tape better than Brashard Smith though. Where it's like Tyrone Tracy kind of like now, like you mentioned earlier, like Brashard Smith tape did get better every single week.
I did before the show. Yep.
So that is an absolute, and that's what you want to see. So that being said, like that's totally in the back of my head. Like Brashard Smith, he has say he has room to grow. He has a ton of room to grow, and it shows on tape. And being a former wide receiver, it's funny because like the first game I watched him was versus Penn State, and like early on the game, it looked like he ran the wrong route and he threw a pick six, a pick six right to him. Like he stopped his route and the quarterback threw it and it was a pick six. I was like, oh, nice former, literally the first thing in my head, I'm like, oh, nice former receiver. You just ran a wrong route. Everything outside of that one play versus Penn State, he looked really good in the receiving game. But
he had that one against Florida State where he like mossed the dude.
Yeah. He looks very natural catching the ball. Very
surprise.
Like I'm semi-impressed by his receiving skills and wouldn't mind seeing him.
Well, they had him test that receiver as well.
Did they?
They had him, or at least they requested. I don't know if he did it, but every year the teams will request certain guys to test at multiple positions. Yeah. He was one of those players that they requested that he test at both receiver and running back. So did Marcus Yarns from Delaware State, who we'll get to. There was like one other guy that
interesting because I honestly, when I'm watching the tape, I'm like, when he was making catches like that looked really good for a wide receiver. Like he should maybe think about doing that because the stuff at running back is fine. It didn't look natural, right?
That's literally where I was going next.
Yeah. I mean, so go ahead, continue on with what you're saying.
So Brashard Smith out of SMU, if some of you sit down and you watch his highlight tape, you're going to come away very impressed. Like I said, some of the catches he makes very nice. The way he's able to stop, start, and go is pretty nice. Like he's definitely somebody, he's a football player for sure.
Yep.
At running back, he has got a lot to grow on. I mean, he's terrible in pass protection, absolutely horrendous, almost non-useful whatsoever. His vision is non-existent to me.
Can I make a note there? I think in between the tackles, I completely agree. It's hard, but at second level, he's got great second level vision.
And that's what I'm talking about.
And I think that goes obviously back to his wide receiver.
Yeah.
days.
So I'm talking about from a running back perspective. Yep. So everything from behind the line of scrimmage.
I agree with both of you on that.
You take a lot of that stuff and you put somebody outside the line of scrimmage, then yeah, it's completely different. So it's behind the line of scrimmage that like really worries me. I don't think he's going to get a ton of usage early on here in the NFL too. So it's a player you have to sit on. Like for him to turn in what you want for fantasy, like you're probably thinking like 2027 until you like really kind of get your feel on. Maybe 26 with some really good coaches, but like he's got some work to do because he's more of like an explosive big time playmaker than an actual like firm running back. And I would love to get him some like Achane lined up at the slot like 40% of the time. And that's where most of his yards came from. Like if he's going to be used like that, where he's a running back, he's on the field a lot, going to slow him on the slot a lot. Like I'm super excited in the right offense, right? Like he has to
be with a creative person that knows how to use
Yeah,
it. Because I don't think he's 100% a running back. I think he's got a lot of wide receiver in him, but he might not be 100% wide receiver. So he does fall into that odd like tweener, like he can.
And the weird part too is he's not even like a Debo where it's like he's not breaking physical. A bunch of tackles and stuff either. So it is kind of an odd player comp. I don't really know how to like.
He looks like a receiver playing running back.
He's built,
even when he like lines up, he's built that way.
So this is going to sound weird because it's not going to. I don't want to say like he is this type of player, but when you look at a Tyreek Hill, he is a wide receiver that can move and especially
he did play running back that switched receiver,
right? He can make people miss. He can do some things that maybe some other running backs can't do because they don't laterally move that way. They're more angular in some of their like hard cuts and they drop their head. He looks like a player that at the wide receiver position could be more of a problem for off, and occasionally be a running back type of guy than a guy that is a running back that occasionally goes out and plays wide receiver. That's how I see him right now. But that being said, he clearly got better at being a running back as the year went on.
He did.
So, and it's only the first year he's ever played the position. So there's a lot of, it's very head scratching and hard to kind of nail down because he's young. He's only 21. He's new to the position. There are explosive things in his game that are excellent. And there are things that he needs to work on as far as vision and just kind of natural instincts, I think, running the ball.
Where he goes in NFL draft and the team he goes to will depend on my willingness. Like how, like, he just falls to me and it's his value, or does he go in the right spot? And I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm going to reach just a little bit here because he is still young. There's a lot of growth there. And like, I can see the PPR value. Cause again, I want PPR running backs, right? I want the guys that
he's obviously a guy that could be.
To me, that holds a ton of value. Like I'll take a guy who's only getting 10, 13 touches per game, but a lot of those are just in the receiving game. Like that to me, if he's catching 7 footballs for 60 yards and scoring a touchdown, like that's a lot of value. So I'm intrigued by Brashard Smith, but I'm saying from what I've seen, let me say on X, for example, like I would say pump the brakes just a little bit on him, but like a lot of upside.
So when watching him, I talked earlier about Samson and I loved his feet, how his feet were always moving, but they were purposeful. It's the opposite here.
Agreed.
Smith's feet were always moving, but it was more of a nervous, like,
how do I get out of here? How do I get out of here? How do I get to the space?
Yes.
I want to get to the space.
Exactly.
I see it. It's right over there.
I wrote Smith. The second word I wrote in his profile, jitterbug.
Listen, to his credit though, I saw him squeeze through a couple cracks that no other running back would even attempt. And he got skinny and got through and got to the second level.
And I'll give him credit. He was one of the hardest ones to grade the vision for me because I ended up giving him a below average mark because it took him way too long to process. And you saw that in his feet. It took him way too long to process where it was going to open up. He usually made the correct read though. Like 98 times out of 100, he made the correct read. It just took him too long to do it. So that's the other thing that I'm like, with more time, with the right coach, I think the correct instincts are there. He just doesn't trust them yet.
And that's what you need to click. Like you need because it doesn't always click. You need to.
Yeah. And those split seconds are the difference between a 2-yard loss and a 20-yard gain.
It finds exactly what I just said. It's like, he looks like somebody's just like trying to play. Like for what he's
he looks
doing,
more like a high school running back in that sense.
For what he's doing, like he did a good job.
He did. He made the right read.
But you could tell he's trying to do a good job. He's not like he doesn't pop. Right?
It's not
like,
fluid.
Yeah, you could tell. Like it's very clear as day. This guy's out there thinking.
But like you said, it's fluid in the second level though.
Oh yeah,
because that's familiar.
Yep.
But at the line of scrimmage, it's not familiar. But he did get more comfortable game by game. You saw improvement there. So he is very much so on my board. I'm very intrigued by him. He doesn't have an amazing score for me at the moment. He has a 70.5. So he did get above a 70, just barely, but he has a 70.5 for me. Clearly not in the range of some of the other guys we talked about, Tootin, Samson. Clearly not in that range. A couple tiers down, but definitely somebody I want to keep my eye on because we don't always give room for these guys to improve, and we should. Here's a youngish player that has traits and tools. Can he Can things slow down for him?
Yep.
And him be able to process things a little quicker? Can he add some weight? Can he there's steps that he needs to take, but if he can take those steps, I actually do think he could be a good NFL back.
Agreed. And to your point, the gaining weight stuff, he needs to put on good weight because he looks like a thin wide receiver playing running back.
He needs at least 10 pounds and soon.
Agreed. Yeah.
All right.
And there are guys that can operate at 198 pounds. I think he needs to have probably a good solid 10 pounds. Just looking at his frame, the way he looked playing last year.
Yep.